and when we will be putting them up on our district YouTube once they are once we have time to like put them together. So just FYI there. So if you have a session that if you're like conflicted between sessions to go to, don't worry, there will be a chance to watch the other session later. Or if you sometimes I know within the sessions they are so much information packed that I like to like watch it a couple of times, so we'll have a chance to do that. So welcome everybody. My name is Amber Dodd. This year I am one of the district ed techs with Jen Rogers, who's also in our meeting right now. And I am from Alisal. I've taught English and Avid over at Alisal. I was there for 12 years. But now I'm joining Gen Ed Services. So again, make sure that we sign in and so that we can get paid, go through. So today we're going to be talking about collaborative learning with Eduprotocols. Now I'm going to be talking, thanks Jen, I'm going to be talking about how we can do this and how we can use technology to do this. But everything that we go through today, you can do on paper. You do not need to use technology for if for some reason that is not working for your classroom or that's not the strategy that you want to do. So just FYI. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about 3 different strategies here today. So we're going to talk about Iron Chef, Frayer, Friend, and Cyber Sandwich, and how we can use to facilitate teamwork and critical analysis skills, and how we can synthesize that knowledge. And then, like I said, we're also going to integrate technology, and I'm going to show you some tools within Google Slides and Canva that we can use to help facilitate this. But this can be done on paper. This does not, like, the tech is not necessary for these protocols. So you can really modify it to what your classroom needs with it. Some norms within the session, and see, I put in there to remind myself to record just in case I hadn't started recording by this moment. But some norms, this time is your time to learn. So ask those questions, put it in chat, participate. You can unmute at any time. Feel free to really make this session yours and to get out of it what you need to get out of it within our objectives. So you can unmute, you can stop me, you can pause me, you can ask questions. This time is really, really your time. I do have some times where I'll give you a chance to explore some of the websites that I mentioned and some of the templates and to learn some of those strategies. And then we should also have some work time at the end so you can put together your own for your classroom when we go through this. And then when we're not speaking, just make sure we mute audio just to kind of eliminate those background noises. And then for extra support, again, we can meet one-on-one at any point that you need. All right. So just so I can kind of get an idea, because like I mentioned, we are going to be looking at Google Slides and Canva presentations. But just in the chat, if you guys could put in how confident you feel with Google Slides. With like 1, you're like, and 4, you're like feeling pretty experty about it. Just so I can get a quick gauge of like where we're at with everybody. All right, so kind of what I figured with Google Slides is looking at, most of us are pretty confident with Google Slides. We've been using it for years, this one for a long time now. So that's kind of what I gathered is most of us feel pretty good about it. So I'm just going to kind of show some key tips when we get to that Google Slides section. But again, of course, if you need anything, make sure you unmute and ask. And if you're just joining our session, just make sure you sign in. There's a pinned message at the top so that you can see it. Now with Canva, same question. How do you feel with Canva? And specifically Canva presentations is what we're going to be working with today. This is not an in-depth Canva training at all, but I do want to showcase some tools that I use for this. So one being like, you haven't really opened it at all the way to like, you feel really confident with Canva. All right, awesome. Well, that's kind of what I figured for both Google Slides and Canva presentations. Canva presentations, this presentation is done on Canva because if you know me, I went like full into Canva last year, and now I'm on Canva daily, from everything to like doing daily slides for my students on Canva to my sister is getting married in November, and so I'm helping her do her invites on Canva. Like I do my Christmas cards on Canva, like I do everything on Canva now. So I am fully dedicated into Canva now. But like I said, I wanted to kind of we're going to talk about the technology that we use with this. I just wanted to kind of get your gauge on what it is. But what we're really going to be talking about is strategies. And so what we're going to talk about is Eduprotocols, and it's this book here, the one that's on this slide. And Eduprotocols are education protocols. So what they are meant to be used are kind of like protocols or strategies that we can use, and so that students become familiar with the protocol, and then we can interchange the content. So the idea of these is that with Eduprotocols is that we're using this regularly in our classroom so that students become familiar with the setup and they're not having to kind of learn a new strategy all the time. And then we can just interchange whatever content that we want to interchange with. So that's kind of the idea behind Eduprotocols. Now, there's a lot of Eduprotocols. I think this book itself has 16 Eduprotocols in it. We're only going to be talking about 3. Um, but, and the idea of Eduprotocols is you're not using all of it at once. You're really looking at figuring out what really works for your classroom and then kind of using it and repeating it as needed throughout your classroom with it. So the first one we're going to talk about is called Frayer Friend. And this one I really like doing when we are looking at it's an interview strategy. So I really like using this when we change seats, when I'm having students work together that they may not have worked familiar with before. And we do this about once a quarter. So what this is this is based on the Frayer model. So you guys are all probably familiar with the Frayer model, where we have the definition and the facts and the characteristics, and we're kind of breaking down a concept into like 4 different parts here. So with Frayer a Friend is they're basically doing the same thing, but except they are interviewing a partner. So they're breaking down their partner into those 4 or 5 components a little bit. So with this, the instructions for this is students are going to get into pairs, and I have them claim a slide. I work in slide decks a lot, where I have whole class slide decks, which is really scary to release a whole class into the same slide deck. But this is one of the ways that I get students kind of learn the technology too. But we all work in the same slide deck, and students get into pairs and they interview each other. So usually I have 5 questions that they ask, and I give them 5 minutes to interview each other, or a lot of time to interview each other. And the person that is the interviewer has to fill their slide out for their partner. So for this one, it was about like the zombie apocalypse is coming. Who are the 3 people you're going to bring on your team? If you have to take a karaoke song, what is it? Kind of questions like that, just like really low stakes questions. Now, one of the reasons it's low stakes questions is whenever I introduce a new technology or a new strategy, I really want students to like have fun with it. So really, I'm not introducing the concept right away with it, or like the content and like really hard content that I'm putting into this. I really want this to be low stakes and low key. Now, one of the reasons that I really like Frayer Friend is if your students are like mine, especially post-COVID, is they were not talking to each other. And so this is a really great way to get students to really talk and communicate and to like interact with each other and to interview them. And then after they interview each other in the time allotted, there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can have students in groups then introduce their partner to the class or to the group. Again, I'm trying to teach kids a little bit more tech skills, so I have them comment. So they have to go above and below their slide to comment on each other's. So for example, and I'll show you a better example once we get into the Google slide, but this strategy could also be used, if you're using this strategy a lot, you can use this as not only interviewing each other's, you can have the partner pretend to be a character in the story that you're reading. You can have quiz content, and kids are like quizzing each other on the test material. You can jigsaw content things, or you can even assign this in Canva or Cami and allow students to draw on it. So with that said, let's go ahead and play, and I'm going to show you a better example of Frayer Friend and how we're doing that. So in the slide, and let me put the link up here too. One thing that I learned during this presentation right now is I had all of my links in speaker notes, and apparently I can't copy and paste the links in speaker notes because that was my plan. Oops, that link is not going to work because I forgot the bit.ly. Hang on. But it's on the slide too. So this is a template, and if you're in the slides, it's just the link is in the slide. I did it again. As you can see, I'm like in summer mode too. I don't know about you guys. I really like doing these because it also like reminds me how to be like a teacher in human again. Like going, like what clothes, like teacher clothes do I have to wear? What, I can't just be in summer mode again. All right, let's see if third time's a charm. Nope, that is not working. Okay, if you guys are in the slides, it should link up directly here and you should be able to get the copy of it. Let me just paste the copy of it directly. And you should, okay, there we go. Now, the link is now in the slide for the fourth time's the charm today. And it's going to bring you to the copy of Make a Copy of Frayer a Friend. And I don't know about your guys' internet. I'm having to work at home from today too. And my internet's been like a little bit weird. All right, cool. Okay, so within Google Slides here, okay, something popped up. I was making sure. I heard a noise and I was making sure that it wasn't anything else popping up, but okay, no worries. Okay, sorry, my internet is being, okay. Looks like I got a little bit of disruption with my internet, so I'm just making sure we're back together. All right, so within this, and if you are just joining, the link to sign in and the presentation links are on there, and we're currently working on Frayer Friend. So this is a slide template, and I use kind of the same slide template for all of my classes. Now, like I said, for all of these strategies I'm gonna show you today, I usually assign these as one template or one slide deck per class. And I know that can sound scary. So if your students are not there yet, usually the first time I do it pretty early on in the year, like the first week of school or like the first like couple weeks of school where kids are still a little nervous to like cause trouble. That way we can kind of get used to it and talk about it. And I really am going through and making sure that like nobody's like writing anything inappropriately and kind of nip it in the butt. And my experience is that the students, the more we do this and the more that they know that I will hold them accountable for it, I haven't had any problems in class. Again, if you're worried about that, you could assign this as groups. So just make copies of each slide for each group member. You can also print these out for your students and have them do on paper as well. But most of the time, like I have students and I don't really have issues with students sharing slide decks, but I know that can be worrisome. But a couple of things that I want to show you in Google Slides as we're going through that like help me with tips. One is I try to color code each slide. So, or for each group. So when I have students sit in tables and in groups, so whenever I have a slide deck like this and I'm releasing to the whole class, I always change the background color or change something to let each table or know that this is like the section of which they're working in. So to change that background with it, if you go to slide, you can change the background color. And I usually have each group set up by their background and to change their background color there. The other thing I want to point out is a lot of these, I encourage students to insert images. One of the reasons that I do this is I want students to talk to each other, but I also want them to learn the technology. And so I want them to like learn how to use Google Slides, how to kind of more than just beyond the basic. So you can insert the image, insert the videos here. One thing I want to point out, because most of us know how to do this, is that Google New is gifts and stickers. So you can have students search for gifts and be able to like insert the gifts directly into there about how they're feeling or whatever question that you want to do. But I really encourage students not only to type, but to learn how to insert the images, insert the videos, insert emojis, things like that with it. And then the other thing that I have students do is is I have them comment on each other's. So I have them go to their own slide and they need to comment above, like above here and below their partners. So at the end, they learn how to comment with each other. So they find something that they can grasp onto and to comment. There's a couple ways to comment, but I always tell students just to highlight what they want to comment on, click comments, and then click add a comment here. That's just the easiest way that I found to teach students to comment. But again, I'm trying to teach them the tech, and so they comment above and below within that. So those are the basic ones, and most of us probably already know how to do that. One thing I want to show, because it can be really tedious, because I do this about once a quarter, if not more often with students, whenever I change seating arrangements, whenever I do this is one of the first things we do. And I don't like having the same questions all the time, of course. So I change the questions every single time, and it can get very tedious to have to go through each slide, or even if I change the slide and then just copy and paste it into each one. One thing that I've found that's pretty easy to do is if I want to change this question, I highlight it and I go to Control Copy and then Control F to find my document, and I'll paste that question in there. And it shows me that I have 30 incidents of it. Let me go back to where it was. Then I'm going to click on these three dots here so that I can replace it with. So instead of having to go through each slide and change it or copy and paste the slides and like create tedious work, I'm just going to replace this with to like, what is your, we'll do favorite food. And now I can replace it all and it will change all of those questions all at once. So I'm not having to go through each slide and change each slide with it. So that is one of the easiest ways that I've found to like create and like instantly change and redo my template for each single time. The other thing is that I do, if you want to change the format of it, is then I just delete the group slides until this one and then just copy and paste the slides as we go through. But the Control Find is the one that I found that has been the best and the easiest for me to change through. Right, that was pretty basic with Google Slides. Any questions or anything of that nature? Oops, and I lost my sharing. Get back to our sharing. All right, I'm gonna give you guys just like 2 minutes to go through Google, or do you guys, I'm gonna wait till I'll give you guys about 2 minutes to kind of go through the slides if you want to create a slide deck on your own or to begin to create a slide deck of your own right now. I'm gonna kind of pause for 2 minutes and let you guys kind of play and to explore within the Google Slides. So I'll give you guys 2 minutes just to kind of play and explore. All right, so a real quick playtime, but I figured most of you guys are familiar with Google Slides and know how to do like images and backgrounds and things like that. And Frayer Friend is really kind of there's not a whole lot of variations besides the questions that I've seen with Frayer Friend. So like it's just changing up the questions and finding the questions and making it relevant for your classrooms with it. So with that said, and if you want to continue playing with Frayer Friend, just kind of pause that because we will have time at the end to do like workspaces and hopefully to create something that you guys can use the first week of school or one of your first lessons with that. So just kind of put that on pause. The second strategy we are going to go over is the cyber sandwich. And so the cyber sandwich here is where students are going to kind of pair up and take notes and kind of discuss the notes that they've taken up with here. So with the cyber sandwich here, we have student 1 is going to get a slide and student 2 is going to get a slide. And so like if they're doing a reading or they're watching a video or whatever content that you want to have them explore and to take notes on, they're going to each have their own slide in order to do that. Then they're going to compare up and kind of write down their key findings in their section. And then they're just going to get together and discuss and compare what they have found. So what do they both have within there? So you can have students looking at the same content. You can have them looking at pros and cons and similarities and differences of something, but they're going to be discussing and seeing what's similar between both. So with that, and my slides decided to go the wrong way. Let me get you guys back. There we go. So one way that I've done this in the classroom is, again, I wanted students talking and I wanted kind of a low key, stress-free, fun activity for students to do. So it was around Halloween time and I decided to have them experience a zombie apocalypse. So the first thing I had them do is to look at, you wake up, and I tried to be as dramatic as possible and then like as corny as possible. I was setting this up with students, but you wake up and you find this and like had like sirens going and stuff like that. Like the world is destroyed. And like I feel like the cornier I made it, like the more students like got into it. But like, so with that, and you wake up in your house, like before your house is overrun by zombies, you will have 8 items to choose from. So you only have these, like out of these items, you only have enough room for 8. So with this, and plus a weapon. So you get a choice of 8 items to choose and then a weapon. So I paired them up. So I actually went through each slide and picked partners beforehand. And they had to find their name and write down their list of 8 items and then copy and paste the picture of the weapon they chose. After they had like 2 or 3 minutes to decide on their 8 items in a weapon, they got with their partner and they had to team up, but together as a team, they can only have 8 items and they had to agree on a weapon. So they really had to argue if they felt very strongly about an item, they had to like argue about why that item would be better with their partner. And then, as a joint paragraph, they had to write about why they would survive the zombie apocalypse. So, what were the things like, why would they as a team survive with the items that they have? Like, what would make them survive it? And so each team got together and they wrote this. As an extension, you can even have them go to Flip, and I had them like record on Flip. If you're doing this in Canva, you can have them record directly. The last time I did this, I didn't have them record, I just had them do paragraphs. Um, and then at the end of class, I actually had a Google form and I had them vote. Like they read through everybody's paragraphs, and or you would have students present, depending on how much time you have and how much you want to allot to this. You could have each student present, or each team present. But I've done both, but I would have them go through the paragraphs and vote on the winning team. Um, and then the next day, to like add into the cheesy factor, is like even printed certificates of like, we survived the zombie apocalypse, and like brought in little like zombie toys for like the kids. So like just something like totally corny, totally fun, but it gets kids talking, it gets them arguing and using proposition and support and like really like having to defend their stance. My favorite teams are like the teams that would write, we would not win. Like we like us as a team would not survive. And this is why we would survive. So those are like kind of the funnier ones. So these, I really, really like the cyber sandwich, not just for content, but for like these funner activities as well with it too. So when we talk about strategies and when we talk about education, like protocols and like things we want kids to do, it doesn't always have to be very serious things. We can integrate whatever is going on and still get kids writing and talking and collaborating together, and still doing these skills. Like everything we did with the zombie apocalypse are still like English language skills that kids are doing. And it's a very low stakes way of doing this. Now, this is a really great introduction too. So like if you do this the first time, do something fun with it so that when you do introduce the content the next time, kids are already familiar with the format of what you want them to do. And it gives them a chance, like they don't have to like learn it. They can like kind of go through it. They just know it's like increased in rigor a little bit. So cyber sandwiches could be really great for articles and readings, for new concepts, for any get to like know you activities. If you have math problems or like science problems that you want to solve, you can have students work together on that and have them like figure out like how did they like have each student solve a problem independently and then come together and then discuss how they solved it and like what similarities and differences they had in how they solved the problem. You can also have opposing viewpoints and pros and cons with that. So there's a lot um, on cyber sandwiches in general out there. So what I want to do now is I'm going to kind of pause talking and I'm going to give you guys about 7 minutes to kind of explore these resources. And again, these resources are on the presentation. So if you scroll to the top of the chat, you'll see the presentation link. But each one of these is a link. So the two I'd recommend is like there's a bunch of cyber sandwich templates here. There's also a really good website I found that talks about the cyber sandwich in depth and has a really good worksheet with the cyber sandwich. Here, I have the template that I used for here. And then unfortunately, this isn't my presentation, but I like the breakdown of this, but I can't find, it's just a view only presentation, like where we can't even copy and paste, but this gives a really good idea of the setup. So you'll just have to like scroll through it here. But I'll give you guys about 7 minutes to kind of go through these resources and to kind of see how other teachers have used cyber sandwiches and how content areas I do, and get ideas of how you could use it in your classroom. So I'm going to stop talking. I'll give you guys some exploration time. And like I said at the beginning too, we're not going to take an official 15-minute break, and so we can end a little bit earlier, because I don't want to interrupt the flow and everything. So if you need to like step out right now too, this is a good time too. All right, and we'll bring it back together and we'll have some time, again, some work time, so you can help set up your own. and everything. And I just want to make sure if you guys can give me a thumbs up, if you can still hear me, I change a setting to make sure that for the next part, you're not getting a bunch of noise because it's a little tricky, but I just want to make sure. Looks like my sound is still working. Cool. Okay. The last strategy I want to talk about, and then we after this, we'll have some explore time, and I'm going to show you some tricks of Canva we can use in there, and then we'll have some work time to really kind of so that you have time to like set up something that you can use in your classroom the next day. I do want to say too, these Eduprotocols, now I come from like English and Avid background, and I know I would be really curious to like work and get some more examples for math because I think these could work really well with math too. So I know we have a couple math teachers on here. So if you guys are interested in doing these and working together on creating these for a math lesson, please hit me up because I'm really interested in how we can use these with math or with science as well with that. So just putting that out there too. So the last one I want to talk about today, and again, getting kids to collaborate, is with Iron Chef. Now, this one I've have like kind of like a love-hate relationship with. I love it now. But when I first to me, this one was a little the trickier ones to get started and to really kind of wrap my head around for some reason. But with the Iron Chef protocol, if you guys think about the Iron Chef TV show, which I don't even know if it's still around anymore or like if it's still airing, but or like new episodes or anything. But just like with the Iron Chef like TV show, is that you give students the content and the lesson, and then you give them like a secret ingredient that they have to add into it or that they have to do. So really what the Iron Chef lesson is like kind of meant to be is a way for like the class to work together to kind of create something and to learn something. And there's lots of different ways that we can do this. And if it's confusing, like I'm going to break it down a little bit more. But if it's confusing, like don't worry, I was like right there with you. Like how can we do this in the classroom? But what you're going to do is you're going to kind of give them like the sources to do, and then they have to create a slide presentation or something. Usually it's a slide that has the facts and images, and they all are kind of given the same template to use. And then they're given like a secret ingredient, like a meme, or having to create a drawing that goes with this. Now, in a true Iron Chef fashion, this is meant to be really quick, that students have 10 minutes to create their slides and then they're presenting it to the class. So they're meant to be kind of really quick. Now, I kind of played around with Iron Chef and like how I do it, and I have Iron Chef-ish type of slides that I'll show you, but they're meant to be like really, really like fast, quick paced things. So these are really great when you're introducing a concept and you just want students to kind of get to know it quickly or just kind of get the basic understanding of it quickly. Or this could be really good for like review-ish. But here's a sample lesson for Iron Chef here and what I mean. So for this particular lesson, they're talking about like, they're talking about biology and like cells in biology. So for this one, each group or each student, depending on how you set it up, and I think for this one, it was for each group, so students are working together, are given a piece of cell thing that they're going to learn. So one group is given cell organization, one group is on how cells grow and develop, one is on reproduction of cells, the response to stimuli, the metabolism and use of energy, but they're each given a mini topic within that like main topic that they're learning. So for example, if you're looking at a story for an English classroom, you could have one group looking at like the plot structure or the cultural historical like background of the story about you have one student group working on the authors. So you can break down like one major topic into like little mini parts is kind of how it mostly works. And then the students have the same template that they're working on. So for this one, they have to have 3 facts. Here are the resources that they use to create their slides, to get the content. They write down their 3 facts, choose 3 images to kind of illustrate those 3 facts. And then their secret ingredient for this one is to have a meme or a joke about the topic, and it has to be connected in some way. So again, this is kind of meant to be quick. So in a true Iron Chef Eduprotocol format, you are given like 10 minutes to kind of put this together. Maybe you have students like read the sources first and then give them 10 minutes to put this together, and then they present to the class within it. And I think part of the reason it's meant to be quick is that we want, I noticed like when I I should say, not just my students, myself, when I have a deadline, I tend to work faster and tend to be like, oh, I gotta get it done. Versus when I'm given a lot of time, I kind of just like procrastinate on that. And it's kind of like that same format with students. Now, there's a couple ways that I have done this in classrooms. And so one way is that I looked at my StoryCorps activity. Now, StoryCorps is a website that is done through NPR, National Public Radio, and it's a way where people can interview each other and get stories. And if you haven't checked out storycorps.com, I highly, highly recommend it. It's just lovely stories and to get introduced to people. And I have students interview people pretty often, or like one of the things we do is like interview activities. So StoryCorps is a great way for me to kind of introduce that and to kind of talk about like little mini lessons and just like a feel good Friday moment. But admittedly, I was getting a little bored with my introduction to StoryCorps. And so I had kind of a slide template that I did that students kind of went through, and they looked at the mission of StoryCorps and like summarized it. And then they like looked at some stories, and it's a great activity. But I'm like, for myself, I was like, noticed I was giving it to when I had subs because I didn't want to be in the classroom doing it with them. Like it was kind of like turning boring to me. So as I was thinking about how I can use Iron Chef in the classroom, this is one of the first ways that I've used it. So I looked at my StoryCorps activity and I was like, all right, I'm going to make this an Iron Chef moment. So, and I say Iron Chef-ish because it's probably not the true Iron Chef format as Eduprotocols written, but it's similar enough. So the first thing that I had them do is we looked at the video and the mission statement as a class. And then I had groups get together and record a conversation that answered, like, based on both of these documents, what is the purpose of StoryCorps? So for me, this was just introducing the topic before we even got into it. And I noticed for some reason links are now broken in there, but I'll make sure we get those links if you guys need them, and they'll show up later in the presentation too. So how we did this, then the second part of that, so students, I first introduced the topic to them, had them get together in groups and discuss it and talk about it. Then the second part of this is that students then picked their slides. So again, I work in slide decks a lot with one, like as a class, especially when it's like practice activities or things that I want them to kind of see each other's work on. So then I had them look at, pick a slide based on their table, and then look at 2 interviews within StoryCorps, write a summary of each interview, and then give key details for each interview. And so each group did this. And then their secret ingredient, because remember I said it's kind of Iron Chef-ish, is that once they worked independently in whatever time I was given, then they got back together as a group and talked about the stories that they listened to. And then they had to answer these 2 questions, which were, why are the stories, these interviews and the mission of StoryCorps important? And who would you interview as a group? And they had to create something. So I didn't care what they created. A lot of, most students just use this blank space on the slide to kind of create a poster-ish type thing. One group did a conversation. So they decided just to record the conversation and kind of create a video based on their conversation. So it didn't really matter as long as a group, they were talking about it and creating something that other people could then listen to or watch or recreate later. So really, they went from talking as a group to working individually to then reconnecting and sharing with that. The other way that I have used StoryCorps, Iron Chef, and this is my most used one, and that was with current events. So I really wanted students to practice lateral reading skills where they have to look at the same information from different sources. And I really wanted us to kind of get in a habit of doing this like on a pretty regular basis, like almost weekly. You know, we had stuff anyway, so it wasn't always weekly, but on a pretty regular basis, I wanted students to look at current events. So I decided to put this into an Iron Chef format with it. So with their current events, they had to first find a current event. So I gave them, when I first introduced this, gave them some website that they can look at. But again, I want students to practice lateral reading skills. So I left it pretty open because at this point we had talked about what's a credible sources, what we should be looking into. And again, the point of this was to get the same source from multiple, or the same topic from multiple sources. So they had their current event. They linked up 2 different sources for that current event and wrote about the similarities and differences in both of those sources. So again, practicing that lateral reading skills. Did they notice any biases coming from one source or another? Did they notice that they were pretty similar? Were there some details in one source that weren't in another source? Those type of things we're looking for. And then they wrote a summary of the event. And practicing our claim evidence and reasoning breakdown. And then their secret ingredient was, how does this event relate to you, or why was it important? So that was kind of like tying it back into ourselves. Now you'll notice this timer here because after I gave them time to find their current events and to do it in class, at the end of class, I then had them present their current events to each other. And it did not matter to me if the slides were done or not. They still had to present it to their group members. They could continue working on it later, but they had to have enough information to be able to discuss and talk about it with their group members. So I have a 1-minute timer here because in Canva, I forced everybody when it was time to present to hit present on their computers, making it full screen. I don't know about your guys' students, but my students, when I tell them present, they're still like working on their like document. So by going full screen, it prevents them from working on it. And then they had to like show around and present and share it. So when it was their turn, like everybody had their like computers turned into the group. And so when it was their turn to present, they hit the 1-minute timer and they had to talk about their event for 1 minute. So that could, I told them in that 1-minute presentation, they could actually bring in their opinion about the event or what their thoughts about it were. They could go beyond what was on the slide, but they had to talk for a full minute about it. And this was a really, really great way for introducing current events to really kind of gauge what students are really latching onto and like what they're seeing. Like some of my boys like picked up sports events every single time, but really got us to talk about those current events. And because of this too, and kind of the conversations that occurred from these groups, we actually were able to do some in-class Socratic seminars. Like, I don't know if you guys remember a couple months ago about the parents that were charged with manslaughter when their son was involved in a school shooting, and then they charged the parents for manslaughter as well. And so when that case was really relevant and like in the news, students started discussing and debating upon themselves. And because of that discussion, I was then able to turn that into a full-on Socratic seminar and bring in additional sources because I could tell that they were really interested in it. So this could lead into like other discussions as well too. So with the Iron Chef, it doesn't have to be about a specific topic. I use this as current events, and we did this like on a really regular basis within it. For my workflow for this too, I just want to point out because my workflow is a little different for the current events. And so for this current events, we worked in class on the current events, but then to grade them and to give it feedback, it was a little, I just found it was easier to print the slide deck. So, you know, like, I know I'm an ed tech and we're trying to save paper and everything. If you're going to print it on paper anyways, I was going to use the same amount of copies. So I still had them working digital, but then I printed it out on paper so that I could write their feedback. It also prevented students from just like accepting my corrections or like not going back into the slide deck and doing it. And then I pass back those paper feedbacks in class. And if I allow students to make corrections, and so then they could just make corrections on the paper and like rewrite their paragraphs on the paper to then hand back into me. So that was the workflow that I found the best for when I was doing these current events on a regular basis here. So some variation ideas with Iron Chef. Again, we can have those pros and cons, kind of like the similar ideas with each other ones. So I've just done a lot of talking right now. But there's a lot of resources on Iron Chefs with it. So again, I have the templates here for my StoryCorps and current events. But there's a lot of templates from Eduprotocols and other educators as well. So I highly recommend looking. These Eduprotocols are as good as gold website. There's the official Eduprotocols website here that has a lot of resources. And then the best video that I found on Eduprotocol or for the Iron Chef one is this one that I have linked here that's about 5 minutes long. So I'm going to give you guys some time to kind of like digest that information. Again, if you need to take a little mini break, go ahead and take a little mini break during this time as well. But to kind of really explore and to look at about how other teachers are using Iron Chef as well. And again, if you have questions too, feel free to unmute to write them in the chat during this time as well. And sorry, Kelly, I just saw your question because I was on the wrong, like I wasn't scrolled down that. So I think I haven't, when I usually have students record, I have them record on Canva, and I'll show you after the 2 minutes how we can share on on Canva. But I found that Canva is really easy to record on, but I'll show you that once we get to the next section there. But I haven't had students really record as a whole class on Google Slides, honestly, because it wasn't available when I did it, and I don't know if the new updates allow for as easy it is in Canva. So I'll show you how I do it in Canva. Yeah, just looking at Google Slides again, it doesn't allow it the way that I want it to do it. But like I said, I have Canva will do it. So this is a great segue into our next section. All right. So like I said, that was a really great really great segue from Kelly about what the next section. So hopefully you found some good resources. I know there's a lot of information out there, especially about Iron Chef, and a lot of good templates that we can use and implement it. And we'll have a little bit more work time towards the end. But I want to dive into Canva a little bit. Now, this isn't a Canva training by any means, but I do want to dive in to show how some of the features and the reasons why I now use Canva almost like over Google Slides. And one of those features is because you can do things like add an audio and video and draw directly into Canva, where Google Slides just doesn't allow us to do yet. So let's go ahead and play. So this link here will take us to, and I'll copy and paste the link. Okay, good. I accidentally hit the wrong button. I was like, oh no, I was going to take it down, but I corrected it before it shut down. So I'll put it into here. It's going to be a very long, messy link, but that's okay. So, and if there's any issues with this sharing, please let me know, because I haven't shared Canva slides or presentations in this way yet. So you guys are kind of my like guinea pigs on sharing Canva in this way. But so if there's any issues, please let me know. But when you get to this page, you should see like edit template for a new design. Go ahead and click on that, and that's going to give you a copy of this template. So it should say give template for new design. And then just give me a thumbs up when you've got it open. Oh, it says to request it. All right. Let me get it requested. All right. Some people, let me make sure that my share settings are correct. Okay, try it, refresh it, because I just changed it to anyone with link versus the organization. So I think that was the problem with it. So go ahead and refresh the link. Awesome, perfect. Like I said, I'm trying it out, and especially in a virtual world where you can't quite see and troubleshoot. So I want to share the StoryCorps one so that we can kind of go over some of those features with it. Now, again, this isn't going to be in-depth Canva training. So if you guys have any questions with Canva, please let me know during the work time. But one of the things I want to point out is the slide 2 and how you can have students actually record their conversations within Canva. And like I said earlier, this is one of the reasons that I switched over to Canva, was that I'm able to embed a lot more things into Canva. I can draw into Canva, and I can have students record their audio and video directly into Canva too. I did this fair amount of times last year, and I really like it because each group could be recording at the same time, and it didn't mess it up. And so they could all record it all at once. And so it made it really, really easy to do. So how students can record, or how you can record your slides as well, is on the site here, you're going to see uploads. So for me, it's the 5th one down. So you can go to uploads, and you're going to see record yourself. So I had one person designated in each group. I just said, somebody pick from each table and be the person to record, and they hit record themselves. And once that happens, and again, my internet's being a little funky, so let's see, go. For my students, I told them they didn't, and for the purpose of their assignments, I told them they could turn their camera off. So they didn't need to have their camera on. That was fine for the purpose of most of my assignments. And then that their default setting was there. And then once they are done, they're going to go ahead and hit record. Now, for the purpose of the assignment, they're going to have the conversation into Canva. It's going to be a recording. And when they're done with the conversation, they'll hit done. Then they need to save and exit it. So go ahead and hit save and exit. And once they've hit saved and exit, then they can move it over to whatever table they're in. So let's say I'm in table 6, I can resize it and move my little guy over there. And so then they can each record. And like I said, I had all 7 tables going at once, and there was no issue in recording with that. So you could have students in Canva, again, by going to uploads and record yourself, you can have them record their presentation, you can have them talking, record those conversations, and really kind of hold kids accountable for their talking. I love this because I was a big advocate of Flip, and when it first came out, when Flipgrid first came out way long ago, I was a big advocate of that because it did hold students accountable. Because if I was on one side of the room, the group on the opposite of the side of the room was like talking about whatever and not the content until I walked over there. So by having kids record their conversations, I was actually able to ensure that they were having more academic conversations and using their time in the way that they were supposed to. And then you can also extend this and have other groups listen to other groups' conversations, and however you want to do that. But again, you don't have to have students go to a different platform in order to do this. It's all in one place, which again, for me is like huge, because I have students that will, like, the more time and more tabs that you have them open, the more we're going to lose them. The other thing I want to kind of just demonstrate within Canva is kind of like some of the basics. So if I go to slide 3 here, which was my students' individual work time, I had these boxes where they had to embed their story that they got from. So how you embed in Canva and like give links to things is you're just going to copy and paste the URL. So I'm going to copy and paste the StoryCorps URL. So let me just share this one instead. And I'm going to go back into Canva and just hit Control V. And when I do that, it's going to actually embed it so it looks like a picture versus just like a sloppy link. I personally, like, I hate like how I had in the chat the Canva link where it's like a bajillion letters long. I hate it when students do that, just because like it just looks so messy and like not good. That I really like students just embedding their links in here. And as you can see, it's linked up to whatever they were looking at here. So again, all I did was I went to whatever website I want them to embed and Control copy that link and then Control V, and it automatically embeds it into Canva nicely and neatly. Now you can still have students link up stuff. So same way we would do in a Google slide where I have them copy and then I can click on the link. Oh, why is it not linking here? I can have them copy a text and the chain link will happen here, and I can still have them link up whatever I want to link up if I wanted to link up in a more traditional way. But I really like Canva because it will embed those links directly. One thing I want to point out too is that I use Canva for my daily slides. And one thing that I like about Canva is that you can actually have them go, if you like to play music at the beginning of class, I'm trying to go back to our slides so I can show you what I'm talking about. If you notice at the beginning of class, let's see, or at the beginning of this presentation, I have a Spotify link here. I purposely left this in so I could talk about it because to me, this is one of the coolest features of Canva. By doing that same copy and paste the URL trick, it's going to embed my entire Spotify playlist. So if you like to play music at the beginning of class, but like for me, I hated Google Slides because I could only embed like a YouTube video, which was like maybe like 5 minutes long at most, or depending on whatever music I picked. And it was the same song every single class period. Here I can embed the whole playlist here, and it shows up like nice and neat, and I can embed all of this in here. Yeah, Canvas solves all of my issues too. Like I love Canva for this. But I purposely left this in. I did this training in person at Q, so I had like we were in person, I could just play music, but I purposely left in here just so I could talk about it because it is my most used thing this school year. So kind of side note asterisks here. But that's one reason that I really, really do like Canva is that you can embed and to kind of use all of these things within it. All right, let me go back to my slide here. The other thing, just kind of like Canva-y things to point out, if you're not that familiar with Canva, anything that you want to kind of add in is under elements. So if you want to add in a graphic or you can actually even do AI generated things within Canva as well. You can do that. I don't think the AI generated is turned on for students, so just FYI with that. But you have your graphics or shapes or any like pictures or like little mini videos that you might want to put in, you can put under elements. So if I usually you put in an arrow for linking things, I can search for that in those images here under elements. For text for Canva, I have the boxes where students can just type into the boxes directly, or they can add in text. So we can add in just like a little bit of text here. Canva does have some like, it's a graphic design thing. So they have some graphic design things that you can edit and modify as well. And then the other thing I want to make sure we point out is this drawing feature. So in a lot of these tools, we have embedded these drawing tools. So if you're a math teacher and you want to set up a cyber sandwich, for example, but you want them to be solving math problems and to be working through math problems in their little like whiteboard space, you can do that directly in Canva. So with this drawing feature here, I don't have my draw screen on the one I'm presenting on, so I can't use my stylus here, but you can actually draw and embed and to like write and do things directly. And so you can have students draw and to solve math problems or to work through issues using the drawing tools as well. It's also another reason that I really like Canva is because I can do this seamlessly. And if you are presenting your like daily slides in Canva to students, it makes live edit. So as you're presenting, if you decide to draw and highlight things in Canva, it's going to show live for the students as well, unlike a Google Slides where you have to exit the presentation and then re-present it again to show those changes. So Canva does a lot that we can do within that. One of the last things that I want to show you for Canva tools that especially works really well for all these Eduprotocols is if you go to the apps feature here, and it's like the bottom of here on the side here, there's a lot of apps that you can add into Canva. So I honestly haven't even explored, like I'm like very surface level when it comes to those apps, but these are all like you can just change your fonts and like add it, like whatever you want to do in Canva, there's probably an app for it that you can do and to kind of play around with. But if you type in YouTube, instead of having to go to YouTube and copying and pasting the link, you can go to YouTube directly, again, through your apps and then searching for it. And now I have YouTube on the side of my Canva here. So if I want to put in that 1 minute timer, I can search for a 1 minute timer and find one that I want to use and then embed that directly in there too. So you don't even have to open up a new tab to go to YouTube. You can search directly for it within Canva there directly. All right, that was a lot of talking. All right. I know. So Canva does so many things. The last thing I want to show you, and this is not necessarily related to the Eduprotocols, but like another Canva tool that I really like. If you guys, one of the timers that I used earlier was kind of a pop-up timer, and that was directly into Canva. And so with that pop-up timer, in Canva, when you're in presentation mode, you can click on a number and it will automatically pop up that timer so that you can have it. So all I did was on my keyboard, just press in 4, and then the 4 minute timer pops up directly. So you can have your timers automatically going in through there. So just want to show that case that because that's also a feature that I use often within Canva. All right, with that said, we have plenty of work time. We're going to play around. So I'm going to give you guys some sandbox time right now where you can explore, and you have like over a half hour right now where you can explore and to kind of go through those templates and go through those ones and create something. So in the chat, just put which Eduprotocol are you most like, are you looking at doing for your classroom, and are you going to try to explore and to do right now, or are you just going to look at all of them? So just in the chat quickly, which Eduprotocol are you most interested in exploring out of the Cyber Sandwich, the Iron Chef, or the Frayer friend that you're going to try to recreate? And I know there was a lot of all eventually, but starting with Frayer, yeah. And with any of these two, just like any extra tech tool, take what you can, like what your mind can wrap around. I would probably start with Frayer too, so that I have something that I can use that first week of school that I can get kids collaborating and talking about. And again, I'm showing like the tech side of it, and I have students use Google Slides, I have students use Canva, but you can do any of these on paper. So you can have students create these on paper, or like introduce, like print everything out and do it on paper too. It doesn't have to be tech. So I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna give you guys about 40 minutes right now to kind of explore and to try to create something that you can use in your classes. And then feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions. If you want to learn more about Canva or how to do things in Canva too, I can also go through on how to do Canva and more with Canva, but I'll give you guys some work time right now. And I don't know if, I know you guys are all working independently, but I just want to point out that like Canva does the live edit. So if you guys are noticing, I've like added in what time we're coming back together, all that stuff. And I did not need to leave the presentation mode in order to do that. It just does it automatically, which is one of the reasons that I'm like, yes, and made me switch over to Canva. All right, so I see your, Kelly, your question about Google Drive. Let me share this tab. So you can share your Google Drive. When you go to share, you can go, if you go to the share and download, you can download it as either like a Microsoft PowerPoint or a PDF, and then you can upload it into Drive that way. So I don't know I think sometimes the formatting gets a little funky, but I think they've gotten better at that. But you can just download it as a PDF or as a PowerPoint and then upload it into Google Drive that way is probably the easiest way to do that. So like, I know like and actually that reminds me, like, because I've been using Canva a lot, I like the organization of Google Drive better. And so I do now need to like get in the habit of like saving mine into Google Drive just so I can remember what I've done without having to search for Canva's organization things, but, or just to have them on a different record. Yeah, organization is key. Canva, that's actually one of my goals, is to like organize my Canva like Drive, because it's kind of a mess right now. But yeah, that would work good for that. But yeah, so go to the share and then download, and you can download it that way. I'll bring back together. So I know that was a long time for work time, so hopefully that was enough time to like digest and to walk away with something that's tangible that you can use in the first week or with one of your content area subjects, and to really think about how we can encourage students to collaborate and to really talk about the skills in either a fun manner or with the content area itself. Excuse me. All right, sorry about that. So the idea is we really want students to be able to communicate with each other, to collaborate with one another, and the tech is just the bonus piece that is part of this. So you can use these strategies with or without tech. I personally like using it with the tech just so that I can get also kind of sneakily teach students the tools that we use. But I know there's sometimes in the classroom that it's just better without the tech, and to really just focus on the conversations and students working together and talking to each other, which is the biggest thing we need. One thing I want to show before I leave, and I show this with almost every presentation that I use with Canva, just kind of behind the scenes with Canva here. Oh yes, and yes, you're exactly right, Gloria, that tech holds student accountable for the academic language use. When I first realized that we could record, that students can record using Flip and other like sources, I was like, oh my gosh, I can actually hold them accountable for speaking, which is like, I don't have to have them write everything to hold them accountable. They can actually speak and use the language themselves. So yeah, tech has been huge for that piece of it. So I'm going to kind of unveil the curtain a little bit of behind the scenes look into Canva, just because I really like Canva, as you can tell, and I really love Eduprotocols. But one of the reasons I switched to Canva too is this presenter mode here. So when you go to present in Canva, you can present full screen or with this presenter view. And I like using this presenter view because it gives me a little bit more control of things. So I can add in timers directly too. I can also control it as a keyboard. So it gives, by clicking on this tool here, this remote control, I can use my phone as a tool. So I'm uploading into the QR code here. And now I can use, you can't see it because it just blinks out when I go to show you, but I can actually use my phone as a remote now. So I can control my presentation as a remote. So in the classroom, this has been nice where I can actually just use my phone and walk around the room and still control the presentation. And then the fun part here is we can actually have magic shortcuts, which I also get on my phone keypad here. But I can do things like confetti or drum rolls, or one of my favorite, I want kids to be quiet, just grab their attention quickly. So this is one of the reasons too that I switched over to using Canva in presentations is for all of these features, and then the ability to use my phone as a remote and to have those magic shortcuts on my phone too, and be able to walk around. So having all of that is also why I've switched over to Canva for almost everything now. So I just want to kind of unveil that because that's been another key like game changer in my classroom this last year, and how I present and being able to go through there. But I really appreciate you guys spending your dwindling days of summer with me and to learning how to you can talk about Eduprotocols and Canva, two of my favorite things ever with this. If you would like to collaborate more or like to talk about ideas or like need a thought partner, I am in the hub tomorrow morning, all morning until presentation at 1:15. So if you want a thought partner or to bounce ideas off of me, and of course I'm available at email or anytime that I would love to meet up with you and talk about this. And especially with math, I think just not having a math background myself, I think there's ways that we can incorporate this. So I would love to see how we can incorporate it into math classrooms and to get real life Salinas Union High School District math examples of how we can use all of these strategies and get kids collaborating using these strategies in a math classroom setting. So yeah, hit me up anytime. And also, like I said, I don't know if I said it in this presentation or earlier somewhere else, but I'm out of the classroom this year, which just feels so weird for me. So yeah, if anybody wants me to come to the classroom to help be a thought partner or to like help demo a tech lesson with you, I would love to, because I know that's one of the pieces I'm going to be missing is being around students. So definitely hit me up if you need anything. So with that, here is, yes, Gloria. So with that said, the link for the feedback form is here. It's also in the chat. So please give us feedback so we can make these presentations in these days more valuable for you and everything. So thank you. I know I'm going to miss being at LSL this year. I'm going to pop by as much as I can. So go ahead and give us some feedback so we can make sure these days are worth every single moment of your time, and everything. So thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Geneva. Thank you.